March 24th, 2022. I'm sitting here and watching See the BS this morning. Tony DeCoble's not inside the conversation. It's I don't even know what to call Vlad Dutier. I don't. As far as to classify him into some label, I don't have a label for him. I know there's a fake king up there, and then there's another not us. I mean, it's three not us. So it's really confusing because they each have their own where they're supposed to be genetically for safe blood banking without commingling of hospital products and biological safety for not contracting disease or having someone target you purposely with a biological germ warfare, whatever. But they're sitting inside of New York. I'm inside New York. I'm in my mother's bedroom, locked into a life I never agreed to, never wanted to live, but I can't get out of because all of the opportunity's been taken and given to the things sitting at the table having this conversation on public air in the same time frame. The field is, I have a White House, there's a white president, it's a white family genetic business, it has a rock wall of silver white, 4-face profile, there's 4 different versions of our family ugly, or beauty, or whatever, and then it matches the paper in the pocket. That's it. It's easy. Easy to explain to a kindergartner without having to say, do you like people? Listen, individually, if my genetic security is not being harmed, I rarely have a problem with humans. When I'm here in this condition, knowing that someone compromised my safety, and there's many avenues that it could be if I go to thoroughly investigate it, what I see is a big problem. There is a home territory where the classified league that keeps world security on the American side of things in tight order, or are supposed to. They're the ones tasked with it in North America. There's something going on. There's a bigger problem, an existential problem, because outside blood bankers have infiltrated the safety zone of the White House. Puts President Biden in trouble, it puts myself in trouble, and it puts my children in trouble. And then it puts other family members in trouble, but we're not going there at the moment. Now, what's second to that is what's inside the classified safety zone that's supposed to be to keep the president safe because he's got stuff he works on global scale that's not supposed to be like known by the public, is that there's nations with perhaps a State Department understanding or a united in nation only, I don't know. But there's so much disinformation, it's so commingled even by words, that it's getting confusing. Then there's business partners involved in this, and some kind of cohesive structure there that's really confusing. But what's most concerning is the interior, where we're supposed to keep the family headquarters the safest, the cleanest, the neatest. So there's no disruption between generational education and family partnership, which stabilizes outside nation states as well. I mean, there's balance there. Has been disrupted. How do you get that back? I'm watching at the table. I'm not even represented. at the conversation this morning. So these are the infiltrates, and this is what they already know. How do they know this information ahead of me? Why am I not kept into this conversation? Why are they given my national security briefing before I am, as TV production people of least importance? I mean, in the caste system, they should be outside reporting in their home genetically safe colony units. Why are they inside of my New York state, just 6 hours to the north of the President of the United States, who's supposed to have the highest level of security, and to keep foreign nationals from learning about his daily whereabouts and what he does as a function, to keep him safe as he goes about and does the family business, as the head of the family business. But instead, he's got some, for lack of a better word, side saddle, some camel that he's toting around. She gets ahead of briefings way ahead of myself again. Why is she not in a nation state elsewhere outside of confidential safe zone? Why does she get an in and an ear to what? Warn the outside nation states and have them have an in on business partners and where to invest next and what's going on next, like the Bizietica network? That's not how the family business is supposed to be built or run. These are really bad business practices, and I'm not necessarily commenting on Joe in particular because I have no idea who his consortium of conglomerates and what they threw at him. So I tend to give him a little space and understanding, and I haven't been able to talk to the father of the nation. I have no idea if it's his people, if his people have been touched in the head. I'm not quite sure. But by the look of who they put on his meal ticket with him, it's a problem for the rest of us. This is what they've got Mcmaster on this morning, which again, he's like Coach K. I wish I had dads and leaders like him in my life. My entire life would have been so nice to have been can I just hang with you? I'll be quiet. But again, on a fun conversation about what do you think, kid, I wouldn't mind speaking with somebody like that. But anyway, so here's what has opportunity in See the BS this morning in New York. They have the intelligence, the foreign intelligence and national intelligence domestically before I ever get it. They're the ones who are messaging it to me. And I have to sit here with a grain of salt going, it's Camel's network. It's Camel's network. It's not even Joe and my network. I mean, how am I supposed to be genetically secure ever? And how are my children not supposed to get these designer diseases by the unknown face of the beast elsewhere that's genetically designing and programming into people's whatever, because there's so much we just love each other and everybody's touching everybody in the head, and it's a real problem.
Goosebumps to see Ed Bradley and Madeleine Albright together.
Bradley, yes.
Yeah. We're all remembering her today. We're going to begin with a high-stakes day for President Biden.
It's diplomacy happens outside of the Garden of Eden. If Garden of Eden is where we have children and we're to protect our children and they're supposed to have a place in the world, that's kind of what North America is supposed to be. If we have the House of the White, it's our garden. Our portraits are on the wall. It's our safe place. There are people who have embedded themselves in our safe place and in our garden. Why is there no landscaping and gardening crew getting them out? Why are people agreeing or touching people and letting people have voices, allowing people to stay and hurt the garden? How did that happen? Baby boomers. When you look at Ukraine and you see all the devastation of the buildings just totally wiped out, that's like the level of whatever. I mean, I look around New York City. I mean, the buildings are standing, but might as well be on the floor because I didn't know who was in them.
Biden sitting down with allies to discuss the war in Ukraine. The president is meeting today with NATO, G7, and European Union leaders in Brussels, Belgium. Mr. Biden is expected to unveil new sanctions against Russia for its aggression and new aid for Ukraine. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky addressed the NATO meeting virtually.
NATO says it's sending troops to Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia, NATO members that used to be Soviet satellites. The move effectively doubles the number of battle groups along NATO's eastern flank close to Russia.
So now, who gave Camel's Network the lead to be the messenger? I'm just curious. Inside the Garden of Eden, where Joe raised his family, and I was held captive in New York because it's a dirty business and there's just a lot of people that are touched in the head and they're not listening. And I mean, like, how does this work? So now they have strategy and war theater information prior to me getting it? I know, I mean, like, again, at this point, whether President Joe Biden speaks the message from the father of the nation himself, the people on the couch and inside that's like dirtied up our garden of safety, I mean, they're receiving the message. That poses a problem for his security and obligations to elsewhere in the war theater. I mean, it's like this disgusting dance of who done it and ran and who continues not to clean it up because they're afraid of what side of an argument they're going to be on. I mean, where are my fearless fathers?
For the first time yesterday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken formally accused Russia of committing war crimes in Ukraine, including an attack on a maternity hospital.
CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor H.R. McMaster joins us now. The retired three-star general served as national security advisor in the Trump administration. General, it's good to see you again. Good morning.
Hey, Vlad, great to be with all of you. Thank you.
So, General, let me ask you about this. NATO is doubling the number of troops at its border with Ukraine. NATO has also...
So now today, they're giving Vlad, this guy, he calls himself a Vlad. He's not a size of a Vlad as far as I'm concerned. That's a sacrilege within itself, but that's just a side note. They put it up Times Squared on here, probably some underground, like, crossover event. But, however, he's got, Vlad mentions that he's gotten Army ROTC training. What? I don't know how old the guy is, but maybe he's a little older than I am. Somewhere between Linda's age and my age. Lewis didn't even get Army ROTC training. And he's like Mount Rushmore, Black Hills National Security. Regardless of what foreign body, whatever, he's still part of this greater existential family. So what I don't understand is how in the Garden of Eden, where his feet are, where he was whatever, how my father didn't even get Army ROTC training for his kids and the gardening to stay safe in here. My grandfather was White House secure elsewhere under some other whatever. But I mean, this gets confusing. And then I'm like, so he has Army ROTC training, but my kids don't. And then I'm like, I listen to the NFL guy, and I'm like, they seem to have ROTC. Then there's another guy that comes on that's touting a book. He's part of the NFL. And he's like, and it's called Illogical. And he's just like, oh, well, I failed so many times. Really? You failed at what? Failed at the level of NFL? Yeah, nobody feels bad for you, shithead. If you lived in, like, rural Nevada where you were the only one and there were nobody for miles around and you kept failing, someone would care. But then again, you'd never meet with the NFL unless they came looking for you. So it's like, I hate people like that get on TV and they're just like, I don't want to hear about you having failure. There's so much opportunity in America. No, there's not. Oh, you mean NFL opportunity? Oh, right, yeah. Well, I guess for you that worked out, didn't it?
Vowed not to fight Russia directly in Ukraine. President Zelensky, in a speech, is asking for clarity on the help that he's called for. What's the purpose of doubling those troops if NATO's not going to get involved?
Well, first of all, we're trying to deter further aggression. I mean, I'll tell you, Vlad. I think, we're like it seems like we're in 1939.
Like, the other thing is like, oh, NFL's an investment. Investment in what? Treason? High treason? War crimes? Potential, like biological degradate of the future generations? I mean, like, you humans are really touching that. I really don't understand you at all.
And when Poland was under assault, initially by the Nazis and then by the Soviet Union, and so I think a lot of these measures are designed to ensure that the conflict doesn't expand. But I think what's encouraging is the doubling down on more and more support for the Ukrainians, who cannot help but inspire us with their courage, with their resilience, and standing up to this aggression. And it's the saddest situation any of us could imagine, right? Who thought? Many people thought, hey, this era was done. This is from the past. This kind of carnage that we're seeing. So I think the demonstration of unity in Brussels is super important. The commitment to deterring further conflict, but
thank God for Brussels sprouts.
But I think especially, Vlad, I would emphasize the doubling down on support for the Ukrainians.
General, you mentioned 1939.
Maybe one day I can make it to an artichoke. But right now I'm in my own artichoke or Brussels sprout bubble outside of the real Brussels sprout stalk.
Even in my first Army ROTC class, I learned that since 1938, 1939, the strategy of any military is to take out airfields, take out airports, ensure that your forward supply troops are being supplied in the rear, use air power to conduct those attacks. The Russians haven't been doing that.
That's really interesting admission, Vlad, because look at how, it's so clearly from a genetic safety zone outside of the North American borders that this person comes from. But yet it came here and someone was giving it military level training inside or wherever he grew up that now he's here. Which is even more concerning if they're sending outside paramilitary inside where Joe is in the White House. Doesn't somebody handle this level of security? I don't know what they call themselves, but and then they're on TV. This is just